Jonathan, I know we're gonna get into a topic today that I think is so relevant for solopreneurs. But before we even get into the icebreaker, do people tell you you have the coolest name? I'm surrounded by Dennis and Joe Rando. Like, how did I get in this mix? You guys have the best names ever.
Yeah, I can always tell when an Iron Man movie is coming out because people are like, "Oh, like Tony?" Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I
I
just have
used to get the Rambo comments back in the 80s. Oh, Rambo. Yeah. Glad that's
now
gone.
he blames I'm a millennial and he blames our generation for making rando a thing.
Wrecking my name. Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
It's awesome.
So sorry about that. But Jonathan, before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's episode, you have built your entire business around the philosophy that around the philosophy of this escaping time for money trap. So let's just start with that as the icebreaker. What is one specific, maybe unexpected way that your life has actually changed, or something you did or experienced once you restructured your business to your current model?
So the very first thing that happened was I switched from hourly billing. I switched over to value pricing, which we probably are going to talk about, and that's a form of a fixed price project. And when I did that, I could not believe how chilled out my customers got. So I was used to, I worked at an agency and I had all of these clients that I was working with on an hourly basis. And I was just used to what I assumed was kind of like the physics of business, which was that they would be in a rush and they'd have deadlines and they would really want you to finish this feature faster. And come to find out that really they weren't really worried about deadlines. What they're really worried about was the budget spiraling out of control. So they always wanted me to go faster, faster, faster because that meant less and less and less money they would have to pay. And when it became like it's going to be $100,000 for this software system that we're going to build, suddenly they weren't in a rush anymore because they believed that I wasn't going to charge them more than I quoted, and I was going to do it the way that I thought was going to be best, and I could not take forever, but I could take the time that was appropriate for the thing. And it was unbelievable. Like I had a good relationship with my clients already, but when I switched over to a fixed price model based on value, it was like it was a huge lifestyle improvement that I was not expecting at all. It was great.
That is fascinating because we always think it impacts the business owner first, the solopreneur first, but to have that impact on your clients, which in turn makes your life easier and it just like goes back and forth. I haven't heard that yet. And that is fascinating to me and such a breath of fresh air, I think, for our audience to be like, oh, I can either switch my working relationship with my client from something that's not so great to something that's better, or an already existing positive relationship to something that's even greater. That's cool.
So, Jonathan, I'm curious. When you made that change, did anything materially happen to what you kind of earned hourly?
Yeah, I mean, I doubled my income in the first year, so it's a little bit apples and oranges because I was getting paid a salary at this firm where I was the vice president. I was managing these other developers. But yeah, when I went solo, my boss from the previous place, we worked out a sort of 50-50 deal. I took some clients with me who wanted to stay working with me directly, and we did a profit share. And if and I stopped billing hourly, but if you divided out how many hours I worked in the year and how much I made, my effectively hourly rate went way up. And in tandem, my life got better in the way that I just described. So it was like more money, easier working relationship with the clients. It was great. I mean, it's still great. It's amazing. Yeah.
Well, I feel like we may have piqued our audience's interest based off of the whole doubling your income in 1 year statement. Um, but for listeners who are just discovering you, which you have a great platform on your own, can you give us the ditching hourly origin story and what the moment was that you realized the hourly building was actively working against you?
Yeah. It was at that firm. I was working at a dev shop in Atlanta. And when I got promoted, I started as a regular developer and then I got promoted to a management role. And when that happened, I was doing one-on-ones with people and I was the guy you'd ask for a raise or whatever. So I knew what everyone was making. And it occurred to me that if we were going to hire someone, we'd want to hire someone like our most junior developer instead of someone like our best developer. And because it would be we're making way more money off of the junior developer, paying one guy 45,000, another guy 90,000, and they're both making us the same money. It's like, how is this? This can't be right. Like, so I thought about it for a couple of weeks, and I was doing all these mental gymnastics around. Like, well, the really good developer, like he trains the other developers, and he's a pleasure to be around, and he's teaching everybody how to do better stuff, and it keeps his clients really happy. But all of those things, they end up unraveling because, well, if he makes the other developers faster, then we're going to make less money from them. And then they're going to want to raise too, because now they know they're better than they used to be. And it just creates this cycle where you end up in an hourly trap. And what you really, I mean, financial incentives cannot be ignored in a business. And if you want to follow the financial incentives, you would want to get the cheapest labor you could get and then mark it up as much as you possibly could and sell it as long as you're not as long as the quality as long as the clients are happy with the output. And I was like, that just went totally counter to all of my intuition. And so I thought about it for weeks before it even occurred to me to question the hourly billing at the base of it. And once I did that, it was like a lightning bolt. I was like, oh wow. Because that's not just this problem. That's also like, we're getting behind in invoices or people fighting about hours entries or people not getting their hours in or clients questioning entries. And all of a sudden, if you take away that hourly billing at the base, all that stuff goes away. There's some new challenges, but everything's got pros and cons. But that was the root cause of lots of different symptoms that I saw around that business. And, they're doing fine. They're still around today. But I decided to go solo because I wasn't sure what to do instead of hourly. I didn't really know what was next. So I went off on my own to kind of figure it out.
When you say this, there's some other aspects. There's another side to this. I'm assuming one of them is figuring out how to price that fixed price. Is that a biggie?
100%. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a big one.
Okay.
Which I do wanna get to that, but before I do, a lot of solopreneurs are terrified to quote a flat project rate because they're afraid of scope creep, which is it's counterintuitive because you almost get more scope creep, I would feel like, for hourly sometimes, but how can they get over that?
About a couple of things. That's actually a huge question. So let's start with the hourly billing causing scope creep, which I believe to be true. So with hourly billing, we can stick with the software model. You're a software developer and you're going to charge 150 bucks an hour to build some software for a client. They're going to use as an internal system to streamline their processes or something like that. And guess what? It's in your best interest the longer it takes. And guess what? It's in the client's best interest if it doesn't take very long. So what ends up happening is your brain, it's almost like a subconscious thing as the hourly biller. Your brain is not going to think of ways to save time because that is going to punish you financially. If you come up with any way to save time, that is bad for your bottom line. So your brain just doesn't do it. And what ends up happening is since you don't have any reward for controlling the scope or even making the scope smaller, like finding a way. And when I say scope, I don't mean the list of features you're going to build. I mean the work you have to do to create the features. So you don't find any faster way to create the features that the client asks for because why would you? You just do the thing, you don't think you're being unethical and you're not really being unethical, but you've just not turned on this mechanism in your mind that's going to think creatively about efficiency. So what ends up happening is you just do what they told you to do. And like, geez, it's taking longer than I thought. And geez, there was a surprise. And geez, the API is not ready and we can't tie into it yet. Or the documentation's wrong for this other plugin. And geez, sorry about that. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. And so the amount of time that it takes to get everything done just expands and expands and expands. And so it feels like to people who are used to billing by the hour, it feels like the scope always creeps. It's always twice as much work as we thought it was going to be. But it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because you have no incentive to do anything more efficiently. So, well, you have no financial incentive. You might just like to do things more efficiently, but you have no financial incentive to do things more efficiently. So, of course, the scope always ends up being bigger than you expected. When you switch to well, we can go back to the original question though, but that's why it causes scope creep.
Mhm. Oh, well, let's actually circle back to what Joe was talking about in terms of what to price and everything. how do you help someone figure out what their work is actually worth to a client, especially when maybe the person themselves doesn't know what they're
Yeah.
worth?
Right. This is the hard part. This is the hard part. If you're gonna do projects using value-based pricing, which is only one of the ways that I teach in terms of pricing, but it's a big one, and it's like for people that are doing project work, it's pretty important. So for a project is something that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. The client is going to be involved throughout the process. They're going to review things and approve things and give feedback and input. So, but it's got an end state. The client comes to you and they say, "We want you to build this software system for us." Okay, why do you want it? Why do you want that? Well, we want to increase productivity. Okay, what's productivity at now? How much higher do you want it? And so you talk about all of the business outcomes that they would want to have from this particular application of your skills. And I go through what I call the why conversation, where I ask these three different categories of questions at the beginning of a sort of a, is not the beginning of the project, but like in the sales portion when I might do a project. And I find out if this potential client understands what the business outcome is that they're hoping this software or whatever you do, what is the business outcome that they're looking for? So I'll ask questions like, why not do this? Like, this is probably going to cost a ton of money. It's probably going to take a long time. It's probably going to eat up your employee resources. They've got a full-time job already, and now they got to be talking to me on top of it. Why not do it? And have them explain to me why they have to do it, for whatever reason. Like, we can't hire any more people to run our invoicing because we have no place to put them. Or if we did, it would cost us $100,000 fully loaded costs to get some new, accounts payable person in here. So we really need software because we want to scale to 10 cities and we can't do it by hiring. So we need the software to unlock the possibility that we can expand into new markets. It's like, okay, that I agree, then software probably is the right way to do that. So then I'd get to the next why question, say, well, why now? Like, couldn't you wait 6 months, maybe 18 months, study the market? Maybe you don't want to actually expand after all. Is maybe there's some reason to wait or research it. And they'll say something like, no, I don't know. Amazon's coming into this space, or OpenAI is coming into this space, or some software vendor we know behind the scenes is working on something similar. And if the window of opportunity is closing and we need to do it right now, or it could be existential risk for our business. So I'm like, okay, that's a good reason to do it now. So now I know it's highly urgent. And then the last category of why question is, why would you hire someone like me to do it? I mean, maybe they just told me they have software developers on staff. Why hire me? Why not have them do it? Why not outsource it to a lower cost of living country? Or why not have your cousin Vinny do it? Like they can vibe code something with AI, right? Everybody's doing that. And they'd give me all these answers like, no, we can't do that, or we tried that, or that's how we got in the trouble that we're in. This is why we're so far behind schedule. And so if you can get answers to all of those questions and you're convinced that you haven't been able to talk them out of doing the project, and you're convinced that you could contribute to this value, this project that they have, then I would say, all right, what is a home run? Like, what does a home run look like when this is done? How are we going to know that it was amazing, that you were I want you to be, I want you to build a statue of me outside of the building. You're so happy with this investment by the time we get to the end. So tell me what is going to satisfy you in advance so I can be driving toward that goal. And they might say something like, well, right now it's taking us 5 weeks to close the books every month. And that's obviously unsustainable. We're getting farther and farther behind on closing our books. If we could close our books in like 2 weeks, that would be life changing. They'll say something like that. And I want to map it to like, how many people would you have to hire to do that if you even could hire? And they say, oh, we'd probably have to hire like 5 people to do that. And so now I'm starting to think, okay, 5 people, that's probably about 500 grand. They would do it. They would consider it, but they can't for certain reasons. So this is definitely worth like at least 100 grand to the business, if not more, but it's at least 100 grand, which now I've got a rough ballpark guesstimation of what it might be worth to this client to have this problem solved. And then I can just work backwards from there. So I'll set some prices that are a fraction of that. And then at each price, I would give them 3 price options for different levels of engagement. At each level, I would say, well, what would I be fist pumpingly happy to do for $10,000? Or what would I be fist pumpingly happy to do for $22,000 or for $50,000? And then I come up with a scope last after I have the value, and then I set some prices that are less than the value. Then I decide what I'm going to do to move the needle for them. Even though they probably asked me for something very specific, I'll say, well, maybe that's what we'll do. Maybe it's not. But what we really want is to achieve this goal, right? Right. All right. So I'm going to come up with 3 ways that we can help get you closer to that goal. Does that sound good? They'll say, yeah, it sounds great. So, I could I teach a whole course on this. I could go for 2 hours talking about just this. But what ends up happening is, because you asked about scope creep, um, that's how you determine the value to them by through a questioning process, Socratic questioning process. Then you come up with some prices based on the value, and then you come up with how you're going to do it at each one of those prices. And the scope, you can control the scope. If they ever ask you for something that's out of scope or whatever, I would just say to the person, how does this contribute to the stated goal of this project, which is to allow you to close your books in 2 weeks instead of every 5 weeks? And they say, well, it really doesn't, but you're working on the website anyway. And there's this cool carousel that our competitors have. And since you're in there anyway, we figured you could just throw a carousel on the homepage. And I was like, well, that might be a good idea. But as I told you in the beginning, because I always tell them this in the beginning, I'm going to say no to anything that will jeopardize the success of the project for your good and for my good. So I'll keep track of these requests that don't contribute to the stated goal, but they would be a distraction if we went and did that right now. Maybe it's a good idea for a V2 or something like that. And I just keep them on target. Focus on not what I'm doing or what features are coming out, but progress toward the goal. So like now in books are closing every 4 weeks. Now books are closing every 3 weeks. We're getting closer. We're getting closer. And keep them focused on achieving the outcome instead of what color the logo is or if there's a carousel on the homepage.
I think there's a gem hidden in there that you didn't say out loud, which is that you basically figured out what it was worth to them and price based on that, which I'm guessing is what you're saying is that when you do that, it's really easy to imagine getting to any given point in the solution and still being able to make a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
We're almost 300 episodes into this show, and that was such one of the most practical, helpful responses
Agreed.
to the question
Agreed.
we've had. It wasn't abstract. It was like, oh, well, you do this. And it's like, that is so refreshing that you actually just gave the answer we were looking for. So thank you for that. Have you ever gone through that whole process and been like, actually, you might be better off hourly? Is there ever a scenario where hourly does work better than not?
Well, there's a reason hourly is so popular, and that's because it's very low risk for the seller. And you basically can't lose money unless you go so far over your estimate that the client insists that you eat hours or they're going to sue you. So it's very low risk for the seller, but no risk, no reward. It's very low margin. So, but when would it be okay to do it? Well, it's really easy to sell. Buyers are used to paying by the hour for things, especially if that's the norm for your industry. It it's the first thing they'll ask, like, oh, we heard you were good at this thing. Alice said we should talk to you because you built a great website for her. What's your hourly rate? It's like the first question almost. And so if you are desperate for money and there's a client who wants to pay you by the hour, or if you're new, if you're not that good at what you do, you're just brand new to it. Maybe you're just out of school, or maybe you haven't had a big job yet, or maybe you're doing a career pivot and you're moving into something that you've never done before. Then you might have to take a job or go hourly to just learn what you're doing. Um, Even then, I would say probably you should go with a different approach, like a productized service or something else, because you're just going to get stuck in the hourly trap eventually. But yeah, if you know what you're doing and you're good at it and you've got happy customers to show for it, then hourly billing is you're eventually you're going to end up in a race to zero. You're going to notice you know, younger people charging less, undercutting you because they've got a lower cost of living or the lower standard of living than you do because, they're just out of school and you've got dogs and kids and spouses and cars and houses and stuff. And so these people who are pretty good, but half your hourly rate are going to be start taking jobs away from you. And then it's like, oh no, like now what do I do? I'm starting to feel like a dinosaur.
Mhm. Well, so speaking of happy clients, like if you have happy clients, you should avoid the hourly. Um, let's say you finish these projects for the client. and they do want to do the carousel, but you're like, I want to increase my rates. Like I am increasing my rates across the board. How do you do that without losing clients? Because I do think that that's another thing that Joe, you look like you're going to interrupt me.
Well, no, I mean, they don't see your rates.
Yeah, that's the answer. There's no rate.
Yeah, but the thing I don't want to leave behind here is that there's a elephant in the room that we haven't mentioned, which is how do you document all of this so that there's an agreement to what the work product is, so that scope creep is something that can even be defined.
Yeah, so I have a proposal format that I originally learned of from working with Alan Weiss way back in probably 2006. If you don't know Alan, he's got a bunch of really good books for consultants. One in particular was my Bible for a couple of years. It's called Value-Based Fees, and I read it around 2006. And he's got all of these really cool proposal examples. I think they're in that book, pretty sure. But at any rate, it's a simple 3-option proposal. It starts off with just a cover letter, it's, whatever, and then a situation appraisal. And this is the key piece in my opinion, this is the key piece of any proposal for like any kind of professional services project. And it starts off with the company's current state, their current situation. Then it has maybe 3 sentences, 4 sentences. Then it has a paragraph, 3 or 4 sentences about their desired future state. And then there's a third paragraph that it basically just outlines why me, like why would they talk to me? How did someone refer me? Do I have special expertise in their field? Were they blown away by my book? Like whatever the thing is, so that they could show the proposal to anybody, people who've never met me or don't even know their business. And it should be 100% clear right from those 3 paragraphs that they're in this current situation. It's bad for some reason. They urgently need to switch to something else. And here's what that something else looks like. Hopefully we got some numbers in there. So like, we're going to go from, taking 5 weeks a month to close our books down to 2 weeks per month, which is going to save us 5 full-time salaries for accounts payable people or accounts receivable people. And the reason why the reason they asked for a proposal for me is because I have special expertise in this field. I literally wrote the book on it. And Alice said I completely crushed her project that was of a similar type. So they could show this proposal to anybody and be like, well, this is a no-brainer. Like, I can see the value here. I can see why you're considering this person. And then if that's nailed and you've got a rough approximation of what a home run would be worth to them, then the proposal like writes itself. Like then you come up with 3 prices. Underneath each price, you just say like, here's what I'm going to do. These are the business benefits to you if you select this option. And then here's the next option. And you do everything from option 1, but also in addition, I'll do some other things. And here are the extra special benefits of this particular one in a business case, business terms. And then same with the third option. They just incremental options that build on each other that outline these business benefits. So then you put your prices for each thing. If you've got the basic value roughly in the ballpark and your prices are a fraction of that value, then close enough is good enough. And they can be considering like, well, with these 3 options, like what's the best way to work with him if we hire him? Like, should we do 2 or 3, or like maybe we just need 1? And now they're all talking about which one of these options makes the most sense. Instead of them, maybe if I just gave them 1 option, they have nothing to compare it to, then they're going to go out and get other bids from other people and try and compare those 2 different things. So that's what the document would look like. And the way that you use it to control scope creep is that, and I would echo this in the proposal, I say it to clients immediately, or not immediately, but on the very first phone call, I will say no to things that I think will jeopardize the success of this project. So if somebody comes to me with an idea that we have not discussed yet, and I believe that it will contribute to the success, I'm happy to do it. There's no such thing as out of scope as long as it's going to help us succeed faster, because it's in both of our best interests. But if someone comes to me with shiny object syndrome and says, boy, wouldn't it be cool if it had this? And I would say, I'm going to make you make a case for any request like that. And if you can't credibly do it, then I'm not going to do it.
So if it's a good idea, it fits the project, you're not raising the price, even if it's more work? Interesting.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, why would I? If it's a good idea and it's going to get me to the finish line faster, I'm going to want to do it.
What if it's a good idea that takes a lot more time to implement?
Yeah, it wouldn't be a good idea then.
Okay, even if it was like going to get down to a week and a half instead of 2 weeks, it wouldn't be considered a good idea.
I mean, well, first, I mean, I suppose it's worth pointing out that projects to me are like measured in months, not weeks. So a
I
project
meant I
that's
meant closing in a week and a half instead of closing in 2 weeks. The goal was to close in 2 weeks. Something that would even exceed the stated goal.
um, I, I understand what you're saying. I've never seen it happen. Like
Okay.
the client typically is not an expert at what I do. So usually what would happen is the expert will get halfway through something and say like, "Oh, there's a much better way to do this." And all of their self-preservational instincts are going to say, "Do it." Because probably if you're like me, or if you run your business like me, you want them to be maximally satisfied. You want them to be super
Sure.
happy that you will know me by the trail of smiling clients. So you probably will gladly throw away 3 weeks of work if there's some new way to do it that you never occurred to you until later. That's going to be far better for them in the future, even if it's still 2 weeks of the close rate, or maybe it gets down to one or whatever. It's totally up to you. You can do it, you cannot do it. The way that the scope creep really comes from them asking for stuff that's just not related.
Understood. Yeah. And related to that, what about the fact that I mean, I assume with what you do and what a lot of solopreneurs do, they need things from the business in order to do their job, and those people have to be responsive. And if they're not, then things get delayed, or if the information is incorrect, that can throw a lot of monkey wrenches. Do you do anything around that in terms of documentation, or?
In the proposal, I have a section called the risks and assumptions, and you just listed a bunch of typical ones, like that I will have access to the senior executives that I need access to. They'll be responsive. You'll review the interfaces in a timely fashion, uh, and things to that effect. So if during the project I start to see, it's a really common one is like, okay, release the UI, and the frontline workers haven't tested it yet. I know they haven't tested it yet because I can see nobody's logged in. Then I'll raise a yellow flag, and I'll say to my project contact, like, look, you guys aren't testing it. I mean, it's fine if you don't want to, but I think you probably should, because your clients are going to see it, or it's going to go sideways later. But it doesn't really cause more work for me. It might cause more delay for me. So
Right.
if I'm not doing anything, I kind of don't care. Like it's a little bit nerve-wracking if I feel the project momentum slowing down, but I get paid up front, so if they wanna drag their feet, it's fine with me. It's at a certain point, it becomes ridiculous, and we'll have a heart-to-heart, but it usually doesn't happen. It's usually just people are getting really busy, and they don't have time to look at the thing. But if they go silent for a couple of weeks, I'll just do other stuff, and it's
Okay.
not that big a deal. So I'm not waiting for the checks. I'm not
Right.
waiting for an
That,
invoice
that
to clear.
that's interesting. I didn't realize you got paid up front, so that changes the dynamics a lot. But yeah, no, this is fascinating. I'm just you know I'm wondering what happens. Let's just say somebody goes completely dark on you, ghosts you. You got the money, and then they start complaining that you didn't. I mean, do you have anything in there that kind of protects you if somebody becomes unreasonable?
I try to weed those people out early, which is sort of a cop out because if you're new to these kinds of conversations, then it's kind of like saying, well, just don't work with those, just detect those people magically in advance. But it's really important to be super picky with your clients. Like my phrase back then was like, I don't want to work with anybody I wouldn't go out for drinks with.
Yeah.
Like, period. Like, there's just life is too short to deal with jerks or people that even never mind jerks, just people that have a completely different risk profile or a different sense of humor. Or it's like, I'm going to be working with these people on and off probably for a year. So I want to feel like everybody is coming to the table with like, the same goal. Everybody's running in the same direction. But let's say that here's a classic one. You get along famously with your project contact. That person leaves. That person gets sick or fired or whatever, and now some new person comes in, and they're not. your type of person. That's a dangerous situation. You are almost, in my experience, you're highly likely for the project to get killed. Highly likely. It depends on, if it's a high level person, it's the project's in trouble. I mean, you hope for the best, but plan for the worst. So you could end up in a situation where they kill the project, could have a hard conversation around that. But and what to do with the payment and like what the deal is probably going to be a hard conversation. The bottom line is, if you have, let's say you have an ironclad contract that you had, drawn up by the leading law firm in New York City. I'm a solo operator. Your listeners are solo operators. Are you really going to go through a lawsuit? I mean, I've been through lawsuits at other companies, and can be a 3-year process for and then end up just like spending as much as you would have anyway if you just gave them their money back. So, you really gotta. I am not a huge fan of, like, fine, have a contract, statement of work, all of that stuff, but ask yourself, what are you really going to do with that contract? Like, if the company's acting in bad faith, they're probably way bigger than you, is my point. And so they can probably eat you alive if they felt like it, even if you're in the right. So I would say to people, minimize the legalese stuff, because that's going to trigger their law department to go through everything and their legal team to go through everything, and then back and forth. And now I'm spending $300 an hour to maybe close a deal. No thanks. Especially when I wouldn't litigate the contract anyway if they violated it. So I don't know. Ask any lawyer and they'll say I'm insane, because of course they would. But um, yeah, it's something to think about as a solopreneur. Like, really, what do I gain by having a signature on the bottom line?
But do you find that there's any use in, I mean, you have a proposal, I would call it a statement of work, but we're just laying out expectations so nobody's surprised?
Oh,
That is,
100%. Yeah.
yeah. Like, so the people know we're going to meet every 2 weeks, and these are the people that are going to be at the meeting, and, these are the roles assigned. Okay.
Yeah,
Just,
you don't want surprises. Yeah.
Okay, Joe, I'm
I'll
going
stop. I'll stop.
to no, you could go on as long as you want, but I do want to restate a question that it's good because you cut me off, rightfully so, to ask all these questions. Um, but let's say you're on a retainer with a company and it's not a project based, like, hey, once this website is completed, like, you're good. You're just like a consultant and you're just a retainer month to month. At that point, how do you increase your fees? They don't see your hourly, but you're like, I've been with you for a while, but I feel like, it's time for me to up my game because people get nervous that they're gonna have to hire if they're gonna scale when that's not necessarily true. So what is your recommendation there?
Yeah. So retainers are the main income of my business for years. And I don't mean the lawyer type of bucket of hours kind of retainer. I mean 24/7 access to my expertise. If you have questions about this initiative that you're nervous about, it's like buying an insurance policy to the bat phone. It's like, if you got a question about, for me, it was always, especially after my iPhone book came out, a lot of sort of Fortune 500 companies had these big mobile projects in the 2010, 11, 12, around there. And they were going to spend a ton of money on some revamp of their website so that it was phone mobile friendly. And they didn't want to mess it up. They didn't want to have to do it twice. They felt like there was some time pressure. So they would hire somebody like me to kind of like be a sounding board for their internal web team. And and they could ask as many questions. The contact could ask me as many questions as they want. So they'd funnel questions from the team to me, and you can get paid. I don't know. I think my highest one was $15,000 a month, which isn't even that high, but you can handle like 2, 3 of those clients simultaneously, because you just need to be smart about mobile. And if that's what they're hiring you to do, then it becomes, the studying that you do or the research that you do feeds into all of you, benefits all of your clients equally. So how do you raise your rates on those people? The answer is you probably don't, because those retainer engagements, they tend to have a very high value near the beginning, and then it tends to taper off over time because you've helped them with all the really big high level strategic decisions, and now they're into the implementation level or maybe even into the maintenance level, and it's just lower value. So unless they have some new project that you're also highly qualified to assist them on, it's probably, I mean, you probably have them for 2 or 3 years. Depends on how long the project is, but in the enterprise, it was not uncommon for a project to take 2 or 3 years. And at the end, you'd be like, all right, we're also the project's your project's over. You don't need the insurance policy anymore. So you part ways. But how do you raise your prices? Well, you raise them for the new clients. So the existing clients, basically the way I always did it was like once we started working together on retainer, that was going to be the price the whole time, unless something really fundamental shifted, like I had to start flying internationally a lot or something like that. But that only happened once, and we worked it out. But most of the time, it would start off. We would, work probably at least a year. They'd pay me for usually at least a year, and then maybe up to 3 years. But they tail off, and then you just get new clients at a higher monthly, to come in behind them. I think when I started doing that, I was probably charging 5,000 a month and worked my way up to maybe 15, depending on the size of the client. But yeah, I don't think I've ever sent out a letter to my clients and be like, my rates are going up. It's like I just raise my prices, and new clients or customers pay the new prices, and the old ones keep the old prices until they just naturally churn.
Mhm. Oh, Jonathan, I love the way you think about all of this stuff. I feel like we need round 2 of this interview because this could go on forever, I think, and I would love for it to. But we also wanna be respectful of your time, and I think so many people listening right now will find this helpful, and it'll help them find greater success moving forward. So we have to ask you, because we ask all of our guests this question, what is your favorite quote about success?
I mean, I don't think about success as much as, I mean, I guess it's a success quote. It's like, how do people will ask me like how to succeed at business? And the thing I always say, or the way that I run my business is by this quote, which is help people you like get what they want at scale for free. And so that's a combination marketing strategy plus business strategy. And it's got a lot of stuff baked into it. If I could take out one of those words, I would. But I've thought about it a lot. And like that is the sort of mantra. It's more of a mantra for me around my business. And if you can do that, even as a soloist, you can do really well, making people's lives better and getting paid handsomely to do it.
Love it, love it, love it. Well, Jonathan, where can people find you if they wanna learn more? Where's your podcast? Just everything.
Yeah, I mean, the best place to go if you want to learn more about value-based pricing, I've got a free email course. You can go to valuepricingbootcamp.com and it'll redirect you to my website. You can sign up for that. But just go to jonathanstark.com or Google for the ditching hourly guy. It'll come up.
It does. It comes up as when I was trying to do some background research. It's very, very, very easy to find you. And Iron Man. Um, but thank you so, so much for coming on the show. We so appreciate it, Joe. I feel like we have stuff that we could even discuss after this about this episode.
Absolutely.
Great. But thank you so much. This is fun.
My pleasure. Yeah, thanks for having me.
And listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, leave that 5-star review. We keep getting more coming in and we're so grateful for it. So thank you so much. Share this episode with a friend that you think might need help with pricing because obviously this is very valuable. And subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast platform, including YouTube. And we'll see you next time on The Aspiring Solopreneur.